Lilypad City felt different now. The conflict between the UNS and Kraken had forced the Hearth to unite, making this once peaceful place a busy refugee city. The population of 318,000, now swollen to more than 500,000. Angel had been here for her doctoral studies. Her other self was serving on the Agassi when wartime jamming cut her off, splitting her minds and experiences. The news of the Agassi's destruction had felt like losing a sister, but the refugees needed medical aid, and the Lilypad's reputation as a centre of medical excellence was well known, ensuring it would become the hospital city of the fleet. Every injured body sent by shuttle for treatment and recovery on Lilypad. The constant stream of new injuries ensured that Angel could keep busy, working day shifts on the transfer shuttles. She was still a qualified paramedic, but there was little time for study, as she spent the evenings in the refugee camps, scattered across the green areas of the domed city. The increase in population and fear had ensured that many were desperate, driving up crime and the injuries that come with it. Port Lilypad Park was the largest camp. The park, being largely dry grassland, allowed many fabricated shelters to be built, each barely 4 square metres of space, stacked 3 to 10 residences high, depending on the height needs of the refugee. At the main entrance to the park was the clinic, itself a prefab, though it was several times larger than the residences. Angel spent 6 hours here every evening, helping the sick or wounded. There was a tough strain of feline flu going around. Carnath, like herself, were not at risk, but Lilypad was hosting more than 20,000 Venusian panthers and Hearth cats. All were at risk, helping the virus spread and adapt. Fortunately, deaths from this strain were rare, less than 1 in 10,000 so far, and all with other health-compromising conditions. In peacetime, most of these problems wouldn't exist. Diseases could be contained quickly, and minor injuries would be healed at home. But the war had changed everything. For the first time in 4 centuries, war refugees existed. She was less than a century old, so everything was new to her. Even as a paramedic, she had never been surrounded by so much suffering. She hadn't had a day off since the war began, so she was tired as soon as she arrived at the clinic. Like every day, the clinic was busy. Dozens of patients were waiting to be seen, several of them felines, separated in bubbles of utility nanites, isolating them from others in a soft, near-invisible shell of their own air. Most were showing symptoms, but one had 3 stab wounds. He was the most serious. Angel moved in with a scanner in hand. He was showing a face of strength, but he was clearly weak. His own blood stained his coat and trousers, a gloved hand covering the deepest injury. The scanner sent its results directly to her HUD, allowing her to review it without the patient panicking. All 3 blows had been to the gut, slashing his spleen and intestines. He needed surgery immediately. Angel called for a gurney and had him taken to Bay 3. She was not a qualified surgeon yet, so she remained to deal with others, treating injuries and performing scans. The next 4 hours were tedious and tiring, but they needed help, mostly, a splinter and eye strain cases notwithstanding. But after 4 hours of it, she moved through to recovery. The work here was easier, checking on patients' progress. She got to sit down for half an hour. The feline, with stab wounds, was wheeled in, as she was redressing a wound. He was still sedated, but he was going to live. After going over his chart, she checked his personal items, making sure they had been cleaned and returned. The nature of a refugee clinic making this less certain. But they had, no small wonder, but looking at the sealed package, she could see his hunter's license and a firearm, a classic revolver-style weapon. It wasn't a surprise to see that bounty hunting is a dangerous profession, but they were a vital part of policing, so he was like a police officer, Nobody would steal his possessions. It would also mean that he will try and leave as soon as possible. They were never ones to wait for healing, so she applied straps on his legs. It would give her time to stop him. It took barely 20 minutes for him to wake. Angel was changing an IV bag when she sighted him undoing the straps she had applied. Finishing quickly, she moved to his bed to stop him. "You need time to heal. The wounds were deep." He stopped and seemed to consider her words. "Your spleen and intestines were ruptured. There are infection risks." "How long?" he asked seriously, turning to face her as he did. "At least 2 days. Then we will know if you're at risk, and your wounds will be nearly healed." He seemed to trust her, leaning back in the bed. "Did you get them?" Angel was curious. If he didn't, there may still be a criminal on the loose. "Yes, though I cannot upload him yet. Off-world communications are still down." He relaxed and closed his eyes. The answer was satisfying. It meant that he would wait out the time, and the criminal was contained. After that, he slept, allowing Angel to finish her work and head home. Since she'd arrived on Lilypad, she'd been living on the campus grounds, a private dorm room 20 minutes walk from the refugee camp. It had once been a serene walk through idyllic streets and green areas, but the rise in crime and population had transformed the experience, the dark streets and huddled groups making the whole journey a paranoid jog. Her paramedic's clothing would dissuade most, but knowing that a bounty hunter was here made it feel less safe than ever. Despite her fears, the journey was uneventful, ending at her dorm room and the safety of bed. A new day dawned, but it was much the same as they had all been since the start of the war. The morning news talked about conflicts, but they also mentioned the Hearth fleet of cities. Another city had joined them in the night, Turtle City, making it a fleet of 9 now. Spending her day on the shuttles, gathering the injured from Turtle City to treat and return to Lilypad. A dozen trips over the course of the day. Angel considered her other self, lost in orbit of Venus. Her ship destroyed, but it was helping a UNS ship. She may be aboard that. Not that it would make much difference. The jamming was in place. She had no ship of her own, and didn't fancy her chances of getting there alive. The Hunter. He may have a ship, as well as the skill to reach her, bring her to the Hearth fleet. Angel pondered the cost of employing a hunter. Would he even take the job? She had money, and according to the net, she had enough to hire some hunters, though not the highly talented ones. So she searched his name, soon getting results. He was one of the hunters that captured the rogue ambassador. He had attacked 2 Kraken on Mars several months ago. Ged had a ship, but he was highly rated by both the JCU and UNS Bounties Commission. As soon as work ended, Angel raced to the clinic, going straight for the recovery area, hoping to see him resting. Ged was still there, though not resting. He was doing yoga, keeping himself in shape, so she headed over, swallowing down her fears. "Mr. Ged, you should not be out of your bed yet." He turned to face her before giving a nod and returning to the bed, even tucking himself into the waist. "I was wondering, are you for hire at the moment?" Angel felt suddenly timid, her words trailing a little. "What's the job?" He was calm, showing no surprise at her request. "My sister, my other self. She was on the Agassi." "I'm sorry to hear that," he frowned. Taking a sharp breath, Angel continued. "Well, she, like me, is a paramedic, and was probably on the Hastur at the time, but I am very worried. The jamming is—" She trailed off entirely under his gaze. "You want me to rescue you from the Hastur?" He had raised an eyebrow, and his tail flicked with impatience. Yes, I can pay. I have... Ged cut her off with a raised hand. Consider it my thanks for getting me seen quickly and worrying about my health. Besides, I want to get off this planet soon. I will find her and take her to Chew Cylinder. She'll be able to get a half shuttle from there. He relaxed back into the cushions of the bed, with a pleased look in his eyes. Thank you. This means a lot to me. Angel leant forward and hugged Ged, causing him to wince slightly, but it had been quite some time since anyone hugged him. It felt good.